Hey, wellness crew. So, I just wanted to talk a little bit about getting out of a rut because I know that that's something that a lot of people kind of struggle with, right? Especially when they're on their journey to changing, to improving themselves. Then they kind of hit, you know, what they might consider a setback. I like to think of it more as just a step back. It's very easy to not understand exactly what your brain, your subconscious mainly, is trying to do sometimes when you're trying to change. And oftentimes you get to a certain point, you think everything's going great, and then you just hit a bit of a roadblock. It may be a situation, excuse me, allergies here in Texas are insane. It can be a whole bunch of different things that could come up. But what we often aren't paying attention to is what's going on inside because we think, okay, we've got this, we're doing the things that we need to do. Or we start to notice that maybe some of the things that we were doing that were helping us have kind of fallen off. So, step one to getting out of a rut is to figure out what changed. So, what was the circumstance? Did you kind of stop falling off of certain habits that you were doing that were keeping you positive, that were keeping you in that high frequency, high vibrational energy in that state? Kind of, assess like, okay, what has happened to have me feeling like I'm in this rut or I've taken this little step back? Making progress is not a completely straight line. Sometimes there are setbacks, sometimes there are, better phrased, step backs. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no reason to beat yourself up about it. But getting to the core issue of kind of what started this rut for you is super, super helpful. Getting to know, okay, this is the origin of this. It can be a lot of different things, but most commonly, what it boils down to is when we're making changes, what our subconscious brain tends to do is it's gotten addicted to the chemicals that your body has been releasing when you're in that not so positive space. So it's going to sabotage you. It's going to, make you maybe have more intense feelings or have a little bit more self doubt. And that's just because it's comfortable, right? Your body was comfortable, it liked the chemicals it was receiving. It's not so sure about these new chemicals. Even if you're feeling better, your subconscious is still controlling 95% of everything. Our conscious brain is only in control of about 5%. So if you're experiencing stuff like, an increase in, doubt or an increase in fear, you can attribute that to your body being so used to being in fight or flight mode or being in survival mode, especially. And once you're starting to get out of that, sometimes it still wants to feel those same chemicals. And that's totally natural. It's part of the process. But it just means that, hey, let's hone in on what the cause is, on what the precipitating event was. So that way we can also handle and get in control of our headspace, of where we're at mentally, and getting ourselves out of this rut. So, a great thing to do is if you have neglected some of the habits that you were doing that were kind of keeping you on your path, starting to return to them. Now, maybe you got burnt out. Maybe you were doing like a whole bunch of inner work. Maybe you were doing a whole bunch of things and making a whole bunch of changes at once. Some people can handle a lot of change at once. It's just you have to remember you're going to have your brain kind of fighting back against you because it's addicted to the chemicals that were being expressed when you were in a lower frequency place, right? When you weren't doing inner work, when you weren't trying to improve yourself and stuff like that. So, since you're making a whole bunch of changes, that's a whole bunch of changes also to your neurochemistry. So, what you want to do is then maybe scale it back, and slowly reintroduce the habits that you've kind of let go, but that you know have been helpful for you, that make you feel better, and make a return to those. Get into a routine, have those habits come back, really focus on, especially too, having a routine that's somewhat regular. I know everybody has different jobs, different lifestyles, but that's somewhat regular, as far as, your bedtime and your wake time. I know me personally, I have quite the range, but that's just because it depends on what my work schedule is looking like, what I need to do that day. So, what I do is in those situations, I always make sure that I do try to get enough sleep. So, it's the same amount of sleep. Maybe I'm not waking up at the same time and going to bed at the same time every day. But what I'm doing is making sure that the amount of time that I'm giving to being asleep and resting and, getting out of being worried, getting out of being stressed out or anything like that, which are emotions that I rarely feel these days, which is awesome. But, you know, things do come up, and this is one of the things that you can most easily regulate. It just takes making the choice to. Making the choice to, kind of make your bedroom like your safe haven, making it a place where you can relax, chill out, using your bed as much as you can only for sleep. Now, you can be in your bedroom and do other things, of course, especially depending on the space of your bedroom. But when it comes to being in bed, you really want to try as much as you can to only use it for sleep, to train your brain to understand, okay, this is just for sleep, and I'm not going to be in bed all day. Because sometimes people in a rut, they have that habit of start to sleep in, or, start to kind of almost get into a, depressive state sometimes, and not like an actual like clinical one, but, just a little bit more down, lower energy. So of course, then you feel like you want to sleep, when in fact, what you want to do is be active and do the things that you have been doing that have been working for you. Now, maybe some things haven't been working for you, so you want to look to retool them. So, another really big important part of getting out of a rut is analyzing how you're currently talking to yourself, because that is so important. That is the one thing that I notice for me when I start to kind of shift back into speaking negatively to myself internally, that's my little like warning sign. So I always stay very much on top of it. As soon as I notice that, I take an action immediately. And oftentimes that action is going in front of a mirror and telling myself that I love myself over and over again with a smile and with obvious like belief and intention, because this is true. I see my value. I see the kind of person that I am. I see the kind of things that I do, and I'm proud of those things. And I want you to feel proud of yourself too, but you have to come from a place of self-acceptance and self-love. Everyone has made mistakes in their past. Everyone has had certain experiences that will stick with them, for as long as you allow them to. And also, there's some people that don't really have the choice because, they may suffer from PTSD or things like that, or are on the verge of it. So, getting your brain out of that is retraining it to be focused on, okay, if you feel like you're speaking negatively to yourself internally, calling yourself names, things like that, those are not high vibrational thoughts. And those aren't things that you are here to accept. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. You have to understand 95%, like I said, is subconscious. So there's some things that will just pop up that are out of our control, but what is in our control is our reaction to it, and the actions and steps that we take to make sure that we understand this is not how we feel about ourselves. This is not the truth. disproving every single negative thing if you have to, do that. It's so important because you definitely want to always maintain positive self-talk. It's important because not only is this affecting you, it's affecting the people around you, your family, you know? Understanding as well that our moods and emotions, these things are temporary. So sometimes we may feel a little bit less, have a little bit less energy, or sometimes we may feel like we kind of want to gravitate more towards like fear and guilt and shame. You have to remember whatever occurred already happened. You can't change it. So don't devote energy to allowing yourself to get into a further negative spiral. And how you talk to yourself is a very big component of that. Absolutely. So, another thing for getting out of a rut is paying attention to what you're consuming. Now, when I'm talking about consumption, I literally mean everything you're consuming. So, what are you eating? What are you drinking? But more importantly, what are you consuming as far as content goes? What are you exposing yourself to when it comes to the movies you watch, the TV shows you watch, the podcasts that you listen to? All of these things, while it may brush off the surface of your conscious mind, the subconscious is internalizing everything you expose yourself to. So if you feel as though, because this was a big one for me a few years ago, I had this like huge thing about true crime, and it was something that I had to definitely like limit myself with, because when you think about it, all of these stories are so dark, and I know it's incredibly popular genre in a lot of different things, with television, with podcasts. I mean, you can find endless stuff on true crime. But what I realized was I don't want to be listening to or, giving myself this fuel, if you want to think of it that way. Everything that you're consuming is fuel for your body in one way or another. So I didn't want to continue to, dedicate all this time to that, Forensic Files is a great show. I don't want anyone to chop my head off for that one. But, when you're consuming something in vast quantities, in vast amounts, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, is this good for you? And that was a realization that, like I said, I had a few years ago. And so I drastically limited my consumption of true crime type of stuff. And that may seem like something small, but even the smallest things can affect your subconscious because your subconscious is paying attention to absolutely everything. So, maybe you can look at stuff that not only are you, consuming, but maybe is also kind of wasting time. And that will free up so much time for you to do things that are more beneficial for you. It's going to free up time where you're focused and present and there for your friends, your family, your loved ones. So, thinking about the things that we consume in general, not just food and drink, but the things that we consume in general. I recently actually did a test on myself because I wanted to see, okay, how would I, at this point now in my journey, how would I be affected by this? So I picked a television show that, and I'm not going to name it, but I picked a television show to watch, and I could definitely see how it just kind of was a little bit pervasive to my mind. Like, it was just a little bit too much gore or too much whatever. Um, very heavy, subject matter. I'm not a super heavy person. I'm really light. I like to kind of be more in the self-development, stuff. That's just me personally. I'm not saying that has to be you. But after watching like a season in the span of a few days, and I think it was like 8 episodes, I was like, okay, I just want to see how this would affect me. And sure enough, it did. Now, I wasn't sure if it would. I was actually hoping that I would be in a place where, I could watch certain things and not be affected by them. Um, but I think since it was a whole season and it was very serious subject matter, very, like I said, very heavy. It was like a thriller horror series on Amazon. And I was like, okay, well, clearly, if something isn't making me feel good or if something is having negative like after effects, why am I going to continue to participate in spending my time with this? It's just something you kind of want to think about because, again, everything goes into your subconscious and it can ruminate in there sometimes and we don't even know it. So, paying attention to all things we consume, right? Including even just what we look at, right? Because our subconscious, our brain, it sees what we see, it hears what we hear, but especially it hears what we're saying. So, if you feel as though, you're again in that spot of kind of being in a more negative place, you want to immediately go ahead and refute or just tell yourself that you love yourself. And it sounds hokey, it sounds cheesy, I absolutely know, but this works for me. This has worked for my clients. And also, too, doing little tests too and kind of seeing what you're ready for, what you're not ready for. Hey, sometimes things just aren't meant for you. Sometimes, like, you just want to be in a certain place and it may seem like a bubble, but what you're doing is just trying to protect your mind, right? You're trying to protect your subconscious. So it is important. Okay, another way to get out of a rut is to practice a digital detox. So this is something I do every week. Sometimes it's daily. I'll just turn my phone off and be free of, like, oh, let me go check analytics on this, or oh, let me, do this, or oh, let me, whatever. Do mindless scrolling on Amazon, do like shopping or something like that. Um, Turning your phone off you can start with like 30 minutes. But what I've done is actually gone about 24 hours sometimes, on a weekly basis, between like more often between like 12 and 18. And the reason why I do this is because think about all the dopamine hits you're getting. Think about the scrolling, think about, what you spend time on your phone doing. And it's so easy to get sucked into things. And that's taking up your time. It's also giving you those dopamine hits. And what is happening? Your body's becoming addicted to that. So, to eliminate that, I definitely practice personally doing at least a 30-minute of my phone is completely off. I'm away from it. I'm going to just go do something else. Um, you know, Paying attention to, like, I found that meal times are great to do this because that's usually, 20 to 40 minutes ish, and you don't need to be on your phone while you're eating. You should be focused on what you're eating or drinking. So, digital detoxes have been a huge help for me personally. They've helped my clients. Um, and if you're, wanting to do like a longer term one, but you're kind of afraid because you're like, well, but I need to be able to be in contact with XYZ, just go ahead and let your family members know. Have a backup device, um, that you can use if someone does need to get a hold of you. Um, Something like that, if you must. But if you can go without it for a good like 12 plus hours, maybe like once every 2 weeks, that's great. That's just a great way to, again, kind of help with overstimulation that all of us experience. It doesn't matter really who you are. If you have a phone, you're probably overly stimulated. And kind of returning your brain chemistry a little bit more back to normal. Okay. So another way to get out of a rut is sometimes we get ourselves into ruts because we are not maintaining our boundaries. So the ability to say no, not apologizing for it, but being able to just say no to certain things. You know, knowing what your values are, knowing what's important to you, knowing what you will and will not do, knowing what you will and will not allow from other people. There's so many people that start off just like I was. I was a people pleaser, and it did not do me any good. And it's still something that I work on every day to get out of. I feel like I have gotten out of most of it, but sometimes I will catch myself being the first to volunteer to do something or being the first to, offer to do something without thinking about myself or without thinking about, well, hold on a second. My time is important. How I spend my time is important. So if I'm spending my time with people, if I'm spending my time, when I'm volunteering, like those are things that matter. If I give you my time, then that's incredibly important. So you just have to be able to set up those boundaries to let people know if they are invading your boundaries that, sorry, but you're not here for that. You're not here to accept that. This is what your boundary is. You can respect it. If you can't respect it, you can go. And it doesn't have to be in a mean way, but it should be in a assertive way, like a soft assertive way. It should be in a no, this is actually how I feel about this, and this is a line that's been crossed that made me uncomfortable. Sorry, it's just maybe there's people you want to spend less time with, so that way you can have time to spend with the people that make you feel good, the people that are with you on, being positive and, feeding your soul, with more goodness than with someone that's gate crashing, your boundaries. But you have to also remember and take accountability. This is something that you're allowing to happen if you allow it to proceed for a long period of time. And when we take accountability, the great thing about it is, as much as it feels like it sucks in the moment, it's giving us the power, it's giving us the control, and we're now in a position to be like, okay, I can say no. And at first it might feel a little bit difficult. You'll get used to it. You really will. It's very empowering to be able to just be straight up and be like, I'm not doing that. No. Not a no thank you, a no. And I was raised with manners. Again, I'm from Texas. I was raised yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. But what I've learned is that, and stopping saying I'm sorry all the time. So for example, where I volunteer at, sometimes I have to squeeze by other people. And I used to be that person that would always say, excuse me, I'm sorry. No, I don't do that anymore, because there's nothing to apologize for me taking up space. We all do. So little things like that, like I said, it really registers with your subconscious. It really allows it to kind of know, okay, this is some serious changing. And it does seem incredibly with small stuff, but these small steps add up to something much larger and much healthier for you in general. Okay, so another way to get out of your rut is to, what is my handwriting here? Okay, so increasing water intake and, starting to kind of add things into your diet that are more helpful for you, that your body can process a little bit better. That stuff you can Google. You have the power to do that, so I'll let you do all that. But what I will say is that I know that I feel and I think a lot better when I'm hydrated. If you suffer from a condition that causes you to be dehydrated more often than not, as I do, supplementing it with stuff like Liquid IV, things like that, it's super helpful. And just being hydrated alone is a big, super huge help. But also when we're looking at what we're eating, just changing a few of the things, because we can all improve on diet. Like that just goes across the board for pretty much everybody. I'm not saying to be super militant. I'm saying include more veggies once in a while. I'm saying, you can go to my video. I think it's called like A Lunch with Jenna or something like that. And it's where I make my smoothie. And there is like fruits, there's vegetables, there's, a whole bunch of stuff in there. And I started to add protein to that. So it's like its own meal pretty much now. And you can just look into little things to do to incorporate. You don't have to make these huge changes really quickly. But remember, what you consume is your fuel, and food is the fuel for the body. So we just want to kind of think about that, not making crazy changes really fast, not making large changes really fast, but doing like little incremental steps so that way you can get used to the habit, you can get used to the routine, and you'll start to find that things that you thought wouldn't taste good or wouldn't, be good, because a lot of people will just kind of run on taste. Well, your taste buds will change. And once you start feeling better, because you're fueling yourself properly, you'll be able to do a lot more things. You'll have a lot more energy naturally. It's incredibly important. Same thing with doing water fasts. Like I'm a big proponent of water fasting. The amount of time, again, always consult a doctor, but they have always made me feel so much better afterwards, especially because then I get to enjoy, the food that I've been missing out on for, the 24 to 48 to 72 hours that I've done fast for. But little things like that, I'm not saying to go do a water fast. All I'm saying is increase water intake and make some changes to, what you're eating. See how that goes. See how you start to feel like throughout the day. Okay, another way to get out of a rut is to take cold showers. Now, there's people that will do cold plunges. It's the same concept. What I do personally is, and this is every day, well, every day that I take a shower, I will, which is pretty much every day, I will start with my water hot, but I end with the water cold. And I do this for anywhere between 1 to 5 minutes. And the reason that I do this is because it's a shock to the nervous system. It's like, okay, something's happening, and that's what it will do for you too. The other thing too is that it really helps with inflammation if you have any problems with that. A lot of people actually do have problems with inflammation, they don't even know. So it helps with that as well. And also what you want to think about is when you're taking a hot shower, what you're doing is you're opening up all of your pores. So ending with your water cold is going to close up all your pores. It should theoretically help you with, your skin, things like that. There's a lot of benefits to it, but the biggest benefit is the shock to your nervous system. Because it's like, I'm not used to this. And eventually, like, you will. So you can definitely change it up by increasing the time that you're in cold water. Ideally, being able to do something like a cold plunge is a fantastic idea. Cryotherapy, awesome as well. But you can get similar effects simply by turning your water to cold at the end of your shower. Okay, another way to get out of a rut is to reward yourself for completing tasks and goals. So small rewards, right? Small little treats, hey, I spent this amount of time doing this, so I'm going to reward myself by spending this amount of time doing something that I love doing, that I enjoy doing. A hobby, something that brings you pleasure, something that brings you happiness, something that that you love to do, So rewarding yourself for completing goals and tasks is a great idea. Not super huge rewards, but just, small little things. So that way you're kind of teaching yourself, like, this is a good thing. We often think about consequences as something that's just negative. It's not true. Consequences are positive as well. It's a result of what you're doing. It's a result of your action that you are taking. So if you're doing good things for yourself, then reward that. Or if you're doing something that maybe you don't want to do, but it's for, work, or it's for some other type of, thing, reward yourself. Just do something small, maybe let yourself listen to your favorite podcast. Start thinking about the things that you were filling your time with and use them now sparingly as rewards. It's just a great way to kind of get, your day going. It's a great way to also, if there's stuff like you don't like to do, like, cleaning up or whatever, having like a super tidy place, that's fine too. But learning then how to kind of manage that, because again, what our eyes perceive affect our subconscious. All right, another way to get out of a rut is to, how did I write this? Okay, that's right. Spend time on self-development. So I always talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza, but there's other books out there. There's other self-development books that you can read. There's Attached, which is really great when it comes to handling like relationships. There's quite a few. I've done reviews on books before, so you can go and check those out. But there's a lot of things out there that can really kind of open your mind, open your brain to these new ideas, these new possibilities, to understanding that there's actually a lot more that you can achieve and that is possible for you without having to, where it's not such a complicated and difficult process. It's not as hard to get from point A to point B as you may think that it is, right? And it's a great way to also immersing yourself in self-development, whether it's, books or audiobooks or podcasts. It's just a really great way to kind of keep you in that zone, to keep you motivated, and also to keep you in learning mode. At the point in time where we think we've learned everything, that's where we're probably at, like, not the best place. You always want to be in a open or have an open position to learning more, because we can all always learn more. We can all always be better. And you don't have to be on a constant quest for betterment and a constant quest for wellness or anything like that. But to incorporate pieces of that in your day is super beneficial, and you'll really start to see changes in yourself. You'll start to see kind of the way that you treat yourself, change, the way that you respond to things change. You'll start to see that you'll lose this, reactionary type of thing that is so prevalent in our culture. When we're less reactionary, when we're able to be open and listen, that's when we can really start to make big changes. And you can listen by reading, your eyes can be your ears sometimes. And you can learn new things, learn new skills. You can just learn new ways of being. So you're not always feeling like, okay, I'm always going to be stuck in a rut, or only bad things happen to me, or, this and that, in that victim place. You don't have to be there. You really don't. And it's actually pretty easy to get out of it. You just have to make the commitment to it. Okay. And the last thing I have for getting out of a rut is getting more movement into your life. So that can be in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to be active. You don't have to only do yoga, you don't only have to do whatever it is that you're doing. Go venture out and try something new, or look something up and try out, a new move in whatever it is that you do currently for exercise. If you're not exercising, that's fine, but it's ideal for your brain for a lot of reasons. We've seen this like incredible increase in, I don't know so much if it was like an uptick in mental health issues, or if it was simply people were paying attention to people with mental health issues. But exercising helps so much with that, and exercising helps so much with just feeling better, looking better. The chemicals that you release, those are the kinds of ones that you're getting the small little tiny hits off of when you're scrolling on your phone. And now you can get this in a much bigger way through your exercise. You can even make it fun. You can go out to a pool, go out to, the lake, go out to whatever. But just staying active, being, involved with movement, and having the intention of, okay, I'm doing this for exercise, I'm doing this, to clear my head, going for a walk, going for a run, whatever it is that you want to do, it's fine. It's just good to definitely get in some movement every day when you can. I'm not saying heavy movement every day, I'm just saying some form of movement. So on like a super light day, you can just go for a walk, not be, obsessed with whatever it says on your watch about your, speed and all that. But just, yeah, kind of like letting go and incorporating more movement into your life, incorporating something that you enjoy doing. Don't do something that's just torturous. There's some people that, yes, can do that. Do something torturous just for the payoff of having a sick body or, feeling better. If you want to do that, that's fine. I just think that there's so many different avenues that you can go when it comes to exercise, when it comes to moving around. And sometimes it's just even taking the small steps. Maybe you're, in a big rut. And so it's just like increasing your steps every day that you're taking, or increasing the time that you're spending on exercise just a little bit every day, just so that way you're feeling your best, you're thinking at your best, and you're getting a much bigger hit of all of those chemicals and more through exercise than you are from scrolling on your phone. So those are my, ideas, steps, not really steps to follow, but definitely things that have worked for me, things that have worked for my clients, for when you're in that, like, I think I'm in a rut. And it's like, okay, let's get you out. Here's different things you can try. You don't have to try all of them. You can just try one, or you can, just kind of let this information kind of sit with you and go from there. Whatever it is, just know that from afar, I'm supporting you, and I'm wishing you the best on your journey towards wellness, your journey towards feeling better, and I believe you got this. So I'll see you on the next video. Be well, stay wild.